I arrived for my first day early, because that's what you do when everything in your life depends on not screwing this up. New job, better title, $95,000 a year, enough to keep Michelle's cancer treatments going, and Jennifer in college without bankrupting us completely. I'd ironed my shirt the night before, checked my route twice, even practiced my handshake in the bathroom mirror like some kind of lunatic. My name is Patrick Sullivan. I'm 48 years old, and I thought I knew how corporate America worked after 8 years in the Army and 22 years in supply chain management. Turns out I didn't know anything about what happens when you accidentally walk into the middle of someone else's cover-up. The building looked exactly like the kind of place that wins government contracts. Clean glass, American flag by the entrance, a lobby that smelled like leather and industrial-strength confidence. Apex Defense Solutions. They made components for military vehicles, the kind of work that actually mattered, the kind of work that could save lives or cost them depending on whether corners got cut. I'd been unemployed for 3 months, not by choice. My previous company, Mountain States Logistics, had been bleeding contracts since the defense spending slowdown. They'd let go half the senior staff, including me, despite 15 years of clean performance reviews. At 48, starting over isn't like it was at 28. Most companies see gray hair and think expensive and inflexible, the ones that don't think you're overqualified and won't stick around. Michelle had been diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer 2 weeks after I got my pink slip. The timing felt like some kind of cosmic joke. She'd be starting radiation therapy next month, assuming we could keep the insurance going. Jennifer was a sophomore at Colorado State, studying engineering, carrying a 3.7 GPA, and dreams of working for NASA someday. The kind of dreams that cost $35,000 a year. So when Apex Defense reached out through a recruiter, I didn't ask too many questions. The position was Senior Supply Chain Director, reporting to the VP of Operations. The money was good, the company was stable. They needed someone with military logistics background and security clearance. I had both. The interview process had been fast, almost suspiciously fast. One phone screen with HR, one video call with Richard Coleman, the operations director. Coleman seemed sharp enough, asked the right questions about lean manufacturing and vendor qualification processes. He'd emphasized the need to move quickly due to increasing DoD contract volume. They wanted someone who could hit the ground running. "We need someone who understands military standards," Coleman had said during our call. "Someone who won't compromise on quality, even when there's pressure to cut costs." I'd liked that. After spending 8 years maintaining supply lines in places where bad parts meant dead soldiers, I had zero tolerance for corner cutting and defense work. I told him as much. "Perfect," he'd said. "That's exactly the mindset we need." The offer letter came 48 hours later, signed by Kevin Torres, CEO. That seemed odd. Most mid-level hires wouldn't cross a CEO's desk. But Torres was young, maybe 34, one of those MBA types who probably liked to stay involved in details. The salary was fair, the benefits solid, the start date immediate. I'd given my 2 weeks' notice to the consulting firm where I'd been doing temp work, told Michelle the good news over dinner, watched Jennifer do a little happy dance when I called her dorm room. For the first time in months, I'd slept through the night without waking up at 3 a.m. doing mental math on our bank balance. Now, standing in that pristine lobby with my temporary visitor badge, I felt the familiar mix of first-day nerves and quiet confidence. 22 years of professional experience teaches you that most problems have solutions if you ask the right questions and pay attention to details. The receptionist smiled and asked for my ID. She typed for a second, then frowned in a way that was almost invisible. "One moment," she said, still smiling. I didn't think anything of it. Systems glitch all the time. First days are always messy. She handed me a temporary visitor badge and said they'd be with me in a minute. So I stood near the couch, briefcase in hand, trying not to look like I was waiting for my execution. People walked through the lobby with coffee and tablets and that casual confidence of folks who belong somewhere. A woman in her 40s walked past carrying a stack of technical drawings. A younger guy in khakis hurried by with a laptop bag, talking quietly into his phone about delivery schedules. Normal office life, normal people doing normal work. I watched them and tried to imagine myself looking like that by next week. My phone buzzed, text from Michelle asking if I'd made it okay. I typed back, "All good, because that's what you say when you can't afford for it to be anything else." She was having her pre-surgery consultation that afternoon. The doctors wanted to make sure the tumor hadn't grown before they started the radiation protocol. My hiring manager, Richard Coleman's calendar invite said 9 a.m. Orientation with HR, then facility tour at 10:30, then team introductions over lunch. It was all scheduled, all clean, all normal. I'd brought a notebook to take notes, business cards to hand out, even a small plant for my desk because Michelle said it would make the space feel more personal. At 9:03, the side door opened and a man stepped out fast like he was late. Clipboard in his hand, HR badge on a lanyard that said Scott Martinez. He looked tired in the way people do when they've spent too many years delivering bad news for a living. He glanced at the receptionist, then at me, then back at his clipboard like he was checking something twice. "Are you the—" His eyes dropped to the clipboard. "The new hire?" "Yes," I said, stepping forward. "Patrick Sullivan. I'm here for orientation with Richard Coleman." "Okay," he cut in, polite but rushed. "Come with me. No handshake, no introduction, no welcome to the team. Just turn and walk." I followed him past the elevators, past the open office area where rows of desks stretched into the distance. A few people glanced up from their monitors. That's when I felt it, this tiny, sharp awareness that I was being watched. Not curiosity about the new guy, something else, recognition, like someone had already decided what I was. We passed a break room where two women were talking quietly over coffee. They stopped mid-conversation when they saw me. One of them looked at Scott, then back at me, then found something very interesting to stare at in her coffee cup. The other one just walked away. That should have been my first real warning sign. But you know how it is on first days. Everything feels weird until it doesn't. Scott opened a small conference room with frosted glass and motioned me inside. No windows, one chair, a table that looked like it had never been used for anything important. And there, dead center on the table, was an envelope. Not a welcome packet, not orientation materials, just a single white envelope, positioned like it had been measured for placement. The door clicked shut behind me with the kind of finality that makes your stomach tighten. Scott sat across the table and finally spoke like he was reading from a script he'd memorized but didn't particularly like. "Before we begin," he said, "can you confirm your full legal name for our records?" I gave it to him. He typed slowly, carefully, like he didn't trust the spelling even though it was right there on his clipboard. Then he looked up with the expression of someone about to deliver news that was going to ruin both our mornings. "I'm Scott Martinez, Human Resources." I waited for the part where he said, "Welcome to Apex Defense," or "Let's get you settled in," or any of the normal first-day pleasantries. Instead, he slid that envelope toward me like he was serving a subpoena. "I'm going to be direct," he said. "This position is being eliminated effective immediately." For a second, my brain didn't process the sentence. It just sat there like a computer trying to run software it didn't have. Eliminated? I'd been in the building for less than 15 minutes. I hadn't even seen my desk yet. "Eliminated?" I repeated. "I just arrived. I haven't even met Richard Coleman." "I understand this is unexpected," Scott said, his tone staying steady like he'd practiced this conversation. "There was an internal change that impacts the business need for the position." My mouth went dry, not just from shock, but from the immediate math that started running in my head. Michelle's next chemo appointment was Thursday. The insurance needed to stay active through the end of the month or we'd be looking at $15,000 out of pocket just for the radiation setup. Jennifer's spring tuition payment was due Friday. Another $8,500. Did I do something wrong, I asked? Because that's what people ask when their world stops making sense. Is there something on my background check, my security clearance? "No," he said quickly. "This is not performance-based. It's a business decision. Like that was supposed to comfort me. Like I should be grateful the reason wasn't personal, even though firing someone before their first coffee break felt pretty personal." "I signed an offer letter," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "I resigned from my previous job. My wife, she has cancer. We need the insurance." Scott nodded once. Not sympathy, not apology, just acknowledgement like he was checking a box on his termination checklist. "The company will provide severance per the enclosed agreement," he said. I opened the envelope with hands that felt disconnected from my body. Inside was a printed termination letter dated today, a release agreement with signature lines and legal language about mutual separation and confidentiality requirements. And then I noticed something that almost made me laugh if laughing wouldn't have made me sound completely unhinged. At the top of the letter, my name was spelled wrong. Not a typo where someone hit the wrong key. Wrong enough that it felt like proof they'd never actually intended to learn who I was. Patrick Sullivan. Like they'd copied it from a draft document and never bothered to check. "You don't even know who I am," I said quietly. Scott's eyes flicked down to the paper. "I'm sorry. Can you confirm the correct spelling?" I corrected it. He made a note like the only thing that mattered was getting the paperwork right for legal purposes. Then he said the sentence that made my stomach drop through the floor. "We'll need your badge back before you leave." I looked down at the temporary visitor badge clipped to my shirt, the one that said, "Visitor, Escort Required" in red letters. They were asking for a badge that wasn't even mine to keep. "Who made this decision?" I asked. Scott's face didn't change, but his voice softened by a fraction. The kind of softening that happens when someone realizes they're about to deliver the final blow to a person who's already down. "I can't discuss internal decision-making processes." "Can I speak to Richard Coleman? I'm supposed to report to him." He hesitated. Not the normal pause of someone checking their calendar or thinking about logistics. The kind of hesitation that reveals more than any answer could. "Your hiring manager is unavailable today." That's when I noticed the shadow. Through the frosted glass behind Scott, someone was standing in the hallway, not walking past, standing, listening. The shadow was tall, wearing what looked like a suit jacket, positioned just close enough to the door to hear everything being said inside. The shadow paused when I turned my head toward the glass, like the person realized I'd spotted them. Then it moved away down the hallway, quickly but trying not to look like it was running. Scott didn't turn around. He didn't acknowledge the shadow. He just kept his eyes on me, like he was waiting for me to accept the situation and sign the papers so everyone could get on with their day. And in that moment, something in me shifted. Not anger, not panic, but cold, clear understanding that comes from 8 years in the Army, dealing with situations where the official story doesn't match the actual story. This wasn't a corporate restructuring. This wasn't a budget cut. This wasn't even a mistake. This was something planned. A pre-printed envelope, a scripted conversation, a hiring manager who was conveniently unavailable at the exact moment his new employee needed to speak with him. Someone listening outside the door to make sure the conversation went according to plan. "If the position is eliminated," I asked, keeping my voice steady the way you learn to do in the Army when everything's going sideways, "why did you hire me at all?" Scott held my gaze for a second too long. Then he said the words that confirmed what I already suspected. "I can only speak to what I was instructed to do today." Instructed. Not what happened or what was decided. What he was instructed to do. Someone had given Scott Martinez specific orders about how to handle Patrick Sullivan on his first day. Someone had planned this conversation, prepared this envelope, scripted this termination. I stood up, gathered the papers, and looked Scott directly in the eye. "Who instructed you?" "I'm not able to discuss that," he said, but his voice had lost some of its professional steadiness. I nodded once and walked out. No argument, no scene, no begging. Just a quiet exit that probably disappointed whoever had been expecting me to make a fuss they could use against me later. Outside the building, the October air felt sharp and clean after the artificial atmosphere of that conference room. I sat in my truck with the engine running, staring at the building through the windshield. People were moving around inside like it was just another Tuesday morning, like they hadn't just watched a man's life get derailed in 14 minutes. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Do not contact anyone at the company. You will be paid according to the agreement." I read it twice. Not a request, not advice, an instruction. And it wasn't written with the careful corporate language Scott Martinez had used. This was direct, almost military in its brevity. Someone who was used to giving orders. I took a screenshot and saved it in a folder I titled Evidence. Then I did something that would have seemed impossible 6 months ago when I still believed the system worked the way it was supposed to. I called my old Army buddy Timothy Brooks. Tim had been a logistics sergeant when we served together in Afghanistan. These days, he ran supply chain for a medical device manufacturer in Denver. More importantly, he had 25 years of experience recognizing when someone was trying to sell you a load of garbage. "Pat," he said when he picked up, "how'd the first day go?" I gave him the timeline. Arrived at 8:45, in conference room by 9:03, terminated by 9:17, escorted out by 9:20. Tim listened without interrupting, which is one of the things I'd always liked about him. When you've been in firefights together, you learn to let people finish their reports before asking questions. "That's not how legitimate companies operate," he said when I finished. "Something's seriously wrong here." I forwarded him the offer letter and the termination agreement. While he was reading, my phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. "You need to sign today." This time I replied, "Please identify yourself and state your role at the company." No response. Tim called back 10 minutes later. "Pat, look at the signature on your offer letter. It's from Kevin Torres, the CEO." Why would a CEO personally sign off on a mid-level supply chain hire? Good question. I pulled up Torres's LinkedIn profile while we talked. 34 years old, MBA from Northwestern, 3 years at Apex Defense after stints at 2 consulting firms. His posts were all about optimizing operational efficiency and leveraging synergies for competitive advantage, the kind of business school buzzword soup that usually means someone's about to get fired. "What kind of company is this?" I asked Tim. "Defense contractor. They make components for military vehicles, armor plating, electrical systems, some communications gear." "Government contracts, which means strict oversight." Or it's supposed to mean strict oversight. That afternoon, I did something I probably should have done before accepting the job. I made some calls to people I knew in defense procurement, not to badmouth Apex Defense, just to ask casual questions about their reputation. What I learned made my blood run cold. Apex Defense was under informal investigation by the DoD Inspector General's office. Nothing public, nothing that would show up on Google, but the kind of whisper network information that travels through military logistics circles. Questions about component quality, concerns about cost cutting that might affect safety standards, rumors about corners being cut on armor specifications, the kind of corners that get soldiers killed. And suddenly Richard Coleman's comment during my interview took on a different meaning. We need someone who understands military standards. Someone who won't compromise on quality, even when there's pressure to cut costs. Maybe they hadn't hired me to maintain quality standards. Maybe they'd hired me to provide cover for compromising them. A respected veteran with security clearance and 22 years of supply chain experience signing off on procurement decisions. Someone whose reputation would shield questionable practices from scrutiny. When the DoD investigation started heating up, I'd gone from asset to liability in a matter of days. My phone rang. "Michelle, how's the new job?" she asked, and I could hear the careful hope in her voice. She'd been trying so hard to stay positive through the cancer treatment, not wanting to add to my stress about finances. "There's been a complication," I said. "I'll explain when I get home." "What kind of complication?" The hope was fading from her voice. The kind where I need to make some calls and figure out what just happened. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table with a legal pad and started writing down everything I could remember. Not feelings, not speculation, just facts. Times, names, exact quotes, inconsistencies. The way you document an after-action report when things have gone wrong and you need to understand why. By midnight, I had 3 pages of timeline and a growing certainty that I'd walked into something much bigger than a corporate restructuring. Someone at Apex Defense was scared enough of what I might discover that they'd burned a $95,000 salary just to keep me from asking questions. The next morning, I made 2 phone calls that would change everything. First, I called Jason Wright, a lawyer who specialized in veteran employment issues and whistleblower protection. I'd gotten his name from a veterans advocacy group after my last job ended. Second, I called the DoD Inspector General's fraud hotline. Because if they thought they could erase me quietly, they'd underestimated what 8 years in the Army teaches you about fighting back. Jason Wright had the kind of voice that made you understand why veterans trusted him with their cases. Calm, direct, no unnecessary drama. I laid out the timeline over the phone, the rushed hiring, the immediate termination, the threatening texts, the DoD investigation angle. When I finished, Jason was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Pat, I think you just walked into the middle of a cover-up, and they tried to make you disappear before you realized what you'd seen." What's my next move? We document everything. We file a formal complaint with the Department of Labor for wrongful termination. And we make sure the DoD knows that a defense contractor is potentially intimidating witnesses. The DoD Inspector General's office took my call seriously, maybe too seriously. Within 24 hours, I had an appointment to speak with Senior Investigator Carol Henderson in the Denver Federal Building. She was a former Army colonel with 15 years of experience investigating contractor fraud. "Mr. Sullivan," she said after I'd given my statement, "you're describing a pattern we've been tracking for 8 months. Apex Defense hiring and quickly terminating people with oversight experience right as our investigation intensifies." "How many others?" I asked. "You're the fourth in 6 months. The others signed the separation agreements and disappeared quietly. That made my decision easy. I wasn't signing anything." Within 48 hours, Amanda Rodriguez from Apex Defense Employee Relations called. Her voice had the kind of practiced warmth that comes with legal coaching and damage control training. "Mr. Sullivan," she said, "we'd like to discuss a resolution to this unfortunate situation." "What kind of resolution?" "Enhanced compensation in exchange for a mutual release and confidentiality agreement." "How enhanced?" $75,000, plus extended health benefits through the end of the year. I almost laughed. That was more than most people made in a year just to stay quiet about being fired after 14 minutes. That's generous for a company that couldn't afford to keep me on payroll. Her pause told me everything. "We want to do right by you and your family, Mr. Sullivan. We understand your wife is facing health challenges." Bringing up Michelle's cancer felt like a threat wrapped in sympathy. "Then answer my questions. Who authorized my termination? Why was Richard Coleman involved in my hire if he couldn't protect my position? What's your company's current DoD compliance status?" Another pause. "I'm not able to discuss those specific matters." "Then I'm not able to sign anything." The calls escalated quickly after that. First Amanda Rodriguez, then someone from corporate legal. Then Rebecca Foster, interim VP of operations, called personally. Rebecca had the kind of voice that comes from cleaning up other people's messes for 20 years. No wasted words, no corporate speak, just straight talk. "Mr. Sullivan, I'm going to be direct with you. Your hiring was unauthorized. Richard Coleman exceeded his authority in creating your position without proper budget approval or security review." Finally, some truth. "So why offer me $75,000 to stay quiet about an HR mistake?" "Because," Rebecca said carefully, "we believe Richard Coleman was positioning people to legitimize procurement decisions that should have been flagged for quality review. When our internal audit flagged the irregularities, anyone associated with those decisions became a potential liability." The pieces clicked into place. Coleman hadn't been hiring me to do a job. He'd been hiring me to provide cover for cutting corners on military contracts. My security clearance and Army background would have made questionable procurement decisions look legitimate to outside auditors. "What happened to Coleman?" I asked. "His employment ended yesterday following an internal investigation." I leaned back in my chair. "And what happens to me?" "We'd like to offer you a legitimate position. Senior Quality Assurance Manager, $105,000, full benefits, reporting directly to me. Your job would be ensuring our defense contracts meet all DoD specifications." I thought about Michelle's oncologist appointments, Jennifer's spring tuition, the mortgage payment due next week. I thought about the soldiers who depended on equipment that wasn't compromised by cost-cutting executives. "I want that offer in writing," I said, "along with written confirmation that my original termination was due to unauthorized hiring practices, not performance issues. And I want assurance that my DoD cooperation won't affect my employment." "Done," Rebecca said without hesitation. The formal settlement took 3 weeks to finalize. Apex Defense paid me $40,000 in back compensation, gave me the $105,000 position, and provided a detailed reference letter explaining the circumstances. More importantly, they cooperated fully with the DoD investigation. 6 months later, that investigation resulted in $2.3 million in fines against Apex Defense and a complete overhaul of their procurement processes. Richard Coleman was barred from working on federal contracts for 5 years. Kevin Torres resigned to pursue other opportunities and landed at a consulting firm that didn't handle government work. The real victory came 8 months after my 14-minute employment ended. Michelle's cancer went into remission. Jennifer made Dean's List and got accepted into a NASA internship program for next summer. And every morning when I walked into that same building, I was doing the job they'd hired me to pretend to do the first time. My new team includes 2 other veterans and a former Navy procurement officer. We've identified and corrected 47 component quality issues in our first 6 months. Real problems that could have affected soldier safety, the kind of work that actually matters. I kept that original termination letter in my desk drawer, not because I wanted to relive the humiliation, but because I wanted to remember the lesson. Some companies don't fire you because you fail. They fire you because you represent something they can't control: integrity, standards, accountability. The only way to survive that kind of place is to refuse to disappear quietly. You document everything. You ask the right questions. You trust the system to work when you give it enough truth to act on. And sometimes, if you're lucky and persistent and have good people backing you up, justice isn't just a word they put on courthouse walls. Sometimes it actually shows up when you need it most.